When we're in the problem-solving mode that's dominated by a sense of, sort of like the push and pull of the ego, the realms of desire and aversion, in that paradigm, as understandable as it is, and sometimes incredibly valid, when we're limited to that paradigm, often that seeking to resolve, that solver mode, is predicated on the ego structure, which is essentially founded in lack. It's founded in a lack that wants to be filled, or a lack that feels like it's lacking and something else out there is not lacking, and it's trying to fit those pieces of the puzzle together and to find satisfaction. But the ego, in its own paradigm, it is defined by lack. And even if it fills, it's brief, and then it's on to the next thing that it's dissatisfied with. And it's often, focused on what's wrong. And so it's just really good to be onto that's sort of the MO, the modus operandi of the ego, is this sense of being founded in lack. And what's different about residing and actually resting down in that stillness that is very satiating, it's very nourishing and nurturing. It fills us with this sense of peace and well-being, and all those energies that go into push and pull return down to fill that lack as well. And there's a way that it really shifts how we perceive the exact same circumstances, and outwardly they maybe have the same factors, but we just perceive them from a different way that feels less divided, that just feels actually a lot more astute sometimes, like, oh, this is what's going on. And not that we are necessarily overnight superhumans that just, see everything with crystal clarity. There's a lot of things that sort of have their own time. In fact, most things do in life. And a benefit of abiding more and resting more in our timeless nature, we could say our eternal nature, is that paradoxically you get a sense ever more clearly that all of the unfoldings of life experience are coming and going, and each one has their own course and their own expression. And sometimes you can be in the middle of something very difficult, but you just have this really strong sense that this too will resolve in its own course of time, in the relative world of time. And sometimes that's really helpful. It's not always a timeline we like. We might be like, well, I want it done now. I don't want to wait a year or even 5 years or a week. I'd like it to be done now. And sometimes our intuition, or that intelligence that is not invested in time, even when our personality is, but that part of us that's not invested in time, it just kind of knows, oh, this is just going to have to take its own course, and it's going to almost have to play this whole thing out until it resolves. And I find that instinct gets stronger with meditation. You just have like a sixth sense of how something is just going to have to play itself out a certain way, or you're just going to have to kind of hunker down and ride this wave and sometimes you even get a direct sense of for how long. So that can also be not always the optimal, but it can kind of be like that sweet with the bitter. It's just enough to sort of give you that strength and that resourcing in this knowing that is letting you know, like, I'm with you. I'm right here with you. I'll be with you for the duration of this. and it's going to last. It's going to last a certain amount of time, or it's going to be a bit. But it almost feels like, okay, I'm going to be going through this human experience, but God's going to be holding my hand. And it just really can make a difference. There's been quite a few times when, somebody's asked me, and I I hope I don't open a can of worms for myself here and have a bunch more people ask me, but sometimes just organically in a conversation that will come up when somebody's sharing with me a really difficult thing they're going through. They'll ask me, like, do you have a sense that this will ever end? And I'll get quiet, and most all the time, I'll get a sense like, yeah, this is going to shift. It's going to be a while, but it's going to shift. And, so far I haven't been wrong, but now I feel like I could be opening up a bunch of people saying, well, what do you think about this timeline, Mukti? And, I don't know that it works on demand, but sometimes when it just comes in the course of a conversation, it can be so helpful, with meditation practice to have that sense. Because I know when people have asked me, they'll be like, oh, thank you for telling me that, because they'll just feel, okay, if there's light at the end of the tunnel, then I can do this, or however they phrase it in their own way. And there is that part of our eternal nature that is very different from our human gaze, that if it could speak, it would almost have this, if I could personify it, it would say something like, I wouldn't miss this. Even something really difficult, I wouldn't miss this. And sometimes you can access a place in your heart in difficult situations that really is willing to be there in the trenches of life out of love for people or aspects of that circumstance. So these are all aspects of our spirit nature that are resources for us.